All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? How's it going? Hello, Ayers. How are you doing? Hello. So, today might be a bit shorter. We'll probably only gonna do the book. No gaming after that. Just reading because my sleep schedule has been shifting a little bit. Where like I'm actually going to sleep at a more reasonable time. And as you may be able to tell, I'm already a bit tired because I've been up since like 9 a.m. So I've been up for more than 12 hours. So we're just gonna do the reading. And then I'll probably have to sleep. I will definitely see that throughout the week. Hopefully I can do like a Genshin or a Honkai stream again. Cause like, oh my god, I actually haven't done Honkai on the stream in a while, guys. Lots have happened. I've been building a new character who's at least talent-wise is almost done, but god, artifacts, no. Artifacts are a pain. Inazuma banner in 2 days. Ooh. Yeah, I might do like, I have like 12, 13 polls. Kokomi, maybe? We'll see. Yeah, but earlier this morning, when I woke up around like 9, but around 11 my time today was the anime, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. I've watched it with a bunch of people in the Discord, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. It was an award show, for sure. It was an award show. They didn't do every category that was on their website. Some of them they just like completely skipped through. They didn't even do. And yeah, some of them were a few little upsets, in my opinion. Or like, who won? And I'm gonna lie, I got a little bit mad on who won Anime of the Year, because I felt like there were better shows nominated. But yeah, it was fun to watch with the people I was watching it. But yeah. With most of them, I'm content with who won. But there were some where I thought like, okay, I don't know about that. The live performances they had that were really cool, with Creepy Nuts doing Bling Bang Bang Bong. Then we had Flow. I think they were doing what were they doing? Can actually be here. Let's go, Sable. How are you doing, Sable? Hope you're doing well. Hey, even the repo. Damn, let's go. But yeah, I was just talking about how we were watching the anime awards earlier today, and there were definitely some winners. We all got a little bit upset about some. But it was fun overall. I make food. Oh, yeah, you should. If you're getting hungry, absolutely. I've had dinner like an hour ago. Still pissed. Not just you. I'm happy that like I'm happy for you that Apothecary Diaries won at least something, because 100% they deserved it. They should have won a bit more in my opinion, but I'm glad they at least won something. And even with my bias being more towards Frieren compared to Apothecary, I 100% see it deserved. Absolutely deserved. Shows more clout. I mean, this is all a popularity vote as well, Sable. Like, I think there's some judges there, but most of it, like, I did the voting on stream. It's a popularity vote. People vote for what they like. It does feel, though, like some of those shows didn't deserve... Like, I don't know. I just don't see some of them being, like, the winner in those categories. What I've been playing lately, Oyas, like I'm still doing like my Genshin and Honkai Daily stuff. I've been playing Risk of Rain 2 a lot recently, which is a lot of fun. And there might be something in the plans for next month with some people for that. That might be a long stream coming. Who knows? We'll see. I don't have a concrete day yet. And who's all gonna participate? I think we're still missing one person. But yeah, we have something in the plans when it comes to Risk of Rain with some people. So there will be a strap in for a long one, boys. I'm glad we want something at least. One episode I still need to watch. I need to start it at some point. So the other day when we were doing the ending of Until Then, I saw that like Twitch had a thing going on right now. If you give 2 subs, you get 1 month of Crunchyroll for free. Like 1 month of Crunchyroll Mega Fan. And that's why I gifted 2 subs to Twin during this stream, because I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna grab that free Crunchyroll. Yeah, you actually have to link a bank details or like payment details, and I don't have a card I can add, and I don't have PayPal myself, so I couldn't do that yet, sadly. But I'll figure something out, and then once I have that again, I'm probably going to be watching Apothecary, because that's been on my list for a while as well. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching that if I can. 100%. I've heard so many good things about that. Yeah, I'm okay with best Japanese voice actor going to Apothecary, because as much as I love the Frieren English, Japanese voices as well. And the other nominees were fantastic too. Aoi Yuki is just such a fucking goat as a voice actress. I've known so many different roles she's had, and she absolutely fucking deserves it. Like being Mao Mao, Futaba, Tsuyu from My Hero, Tanya and Saga of Tanya the Evil, Lumine and Genshin. She has so many amazing roles, many more. So 100% deserved. She's such a good and versatile voice actress. I absolutely give that to her. No doubt about it. Hi, Crystal. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Oh, apparently she's in ZZZ as well. Let me see. Oh, Kaiju 8, Solo Leveling, Shangri-La. Oh, she's oh god, Animalia. That's a character. We're going back to Repo. This last round was crazy. Oh, she's Belle in CCC, okay. I'm sure it was. Repo can always have some crazy fucking moments. Oh, she's also Shuna and reincarnated, okay. And Marcel and Dungeon Machine. Beto tried to eat my face off. No. But yeah, I think it was Aoi Yuki was absolutely deserved winning. I boogied past real quick. Yeah, show her your moves. Show them what you got. I got nothing, that's the problem. I beg to differ. You got a lot to show off. But yeah, when it comes to the awards, I think my biggest upsets were best new anime and anime of the year. Like best new series and anime of the year could have gone to other shows. The fact that they went to Solo Leveling, don't get me wrong, it was good. But like, compared to Dungeon Meshi, Dandadan, Frieren, Apothecary Diaries, I don't think Solo Leveling was on that kind of level. Get back to Repo and get bullied by monsters. Good luck, Crystal. I hope it's going well. You're gonna bully the monsters. Don't get bullied by the monsters. Again, to be fair, I am a bit biased towards Frieren, obviously, as if you guys know me. But yeah. I don't have enough money yet to bully them back. You got this. I'm sure you will bully them super hard. They will fear you. Oh fuck. I did put the duck in the extraction though. Fuck yeah. I love that. You too, Crystal. Have an amazing day. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what we have planned with Risk of Rain. We're still getting some things together. We're making a mod pack for it as well, and then we have 3 of the 4 people I know I think is confirmed who's gonna be running with us. And then sometime next month we're gonna have like probably almost a 24-hour stream, if not a 24-hour stream, depending on how long we'll be going. But it's gonna be a long one, guys. It's gonna be a long one. I'm looking forward to it though. I'm gonna be watching the whole stream. Yeah, I think all 3 of us are gonna be, like, at least the 3 confirmed ones so far are gonna be streaming it. Probably doing like share chat and everything. So there you go. Slothy's fine. She was a bit exhausted after community night with all the socializing going on. I think she's still like taking a nap or taking care of herself right now. She's doing all right. We had a lot of fun on Friday, and then yeah, just yesterday was very chill. Today we're just I've been just very chilling, and then now we're just doing this. Probably gonna go to sleep afterwards. We'll see. She's probably gonna show up eventually today. I don't know how long she's gonna be awake. 2 devices at least, so I can watch 2 of you. Hell yeah, Sable. Yeah, I'm fairly sure at least like me and Twin are gonna be streaming, because I'm definitely gonna stream as well. If I had Wi-Fi, I'd have 3. You'll get your Wi-Fi eventually. We're not gonna be doing it until like next month anyway, and I don't know when next month. So maybe you have your Wi-Fi at that point. I don't know. We should have Wi-Fi by then. That's good. Let's go. All right. So as I said earlier, we're probably only gonna do the reading today, which is like, I think another shorter chapter, because if I saw that correctly last week, it's only like 40, almost 50 pages. Or was it? No, was it like 70 pages or something? I'm not fully sure. I think it was like either 40 or 70 pages, but yeah. So we're gonna do that today, since we're doing one chapter a week. And then afterwards, I will probably end and go to sleep. I don't know if I'm gonna really be doing much afterwards. Maybe we'll hop on Honkai for a bit, doing like daily stuff and the weekly reset Divergent Universe run or something, maybe, but I'm not sure. That's out in the open, but like the book is definitely gonna happen. I'm also kind of sad that I couldn't go yesterday. So yesterday was the what's that day where they celebrate Japanese culture in like a city over, but couldn't go there. First it was like pretty rainy actually yesterday, then I just currently really don't have the money to get like the train ticket to get there. And then right now on that train line exactly, there is some like construction work going on. And knowing already how miserable and how awful German trains are and with their delays and shit, now having like knowing that like, you know, there's construction there that could cause delays and stuff, and the uncertainty of that, I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't. So I didn't go. I did watch the fireworks show at the end though, and it was beautiful. It was amazing as always. It looked super fucking good. Like I watched it online on a live stream. It was great. But sadly I couldn't go there and like browse the stalls, look at the cosplayers, take amazing pictures. I'm gonna download HSR once I finish the battle pass on Fortnite. And I'm in a space, so gonna delete Fortnite. Fair, Sable. Yeah, definitely Yue is very, very precise. Absolute dog shit. God, I haven't been on Fortnite in ages. Not even for the rhythm game. But like, I still play the rhythm game more than I play the actual battle royale. I don't think I've touched the battle royale in like almost 2 seasons now. Oh my god. I could not. I don't care about the battle royale anymore. And they did some changes to the rhythm game, which I don't really like either. And that kind of upset me and made me not play it as much anymore as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I still love the rhythm game. It's super fucking cool. But since we played, I think I played like maybe once or twice after that, Sable. But other than that, I've only been hopping on to play the rhythm game once in a while, and that's it. Literally. But I played in a while. Did it change? They they basically, like for the jam tracks, they basically just removed the ability to buy any jam track at any time, it seems. At least I haven't seen all of them around. Because I got on that one time and I was thinking, like, because I think they added more YOASOBI and Creepy Nuts. And I wanted to buy one of those songs. And right now, from what I see, I think they only have the songs available for purchase that are also currently featured that you can play for free on the festival itself. So unless it is featured and you could play it anyway, I cannot buy it. Which kind of defeats the purpose in my opinion. Like, those songs should always be available. They were always available before they changed that. Like, why did they change that? The rhythm game itself and everything still plays the same, but it's just the fact that the jam tracks, like, you can't just buy any jam track you want whenever you want. You have to wait now until they are in that free rotation, from what it seems. And I don't know how to feel about that one. I don't know why they did that move. I feel like that was very much unnecessary. Hey, I'm not the one making the game, right? I'm not the one making the decisions. I'm just playing it. Do we have any more on this? Come on. Oh no, we still don't have anything. Okay. Never mind. So yeah, I mean, luckily, I'm not too worried about space on my PlayStation right now, since I bought an extra drive and I have a lot of space on that one now compared to what I had before. But it's still like, I'm debating to delete Fortnite as well. What was I saying? I want squads with Twins, Scythe, and Lemons. Yeet Twin off that emote clip. We definitely have to play again at some point. But I'm also pretty much debating to delete it. Even though I still have, like, I don't know, like almost 800 gigabytes or something free right now. I don't know. We'll see. Do we have any info or like leaks on the next Honkai banners actually? Don't really need these on my phone, but I definitely still need to get storage. Yeah. Maybe we don't play that often. Yeah. We'll see. Like, Hmm. Reruns. Fine on Sunday. Trippy Sparkle. No idea about second banner or how the Fate banner was though. Okay. Okay, so far it seems it's gonna be Fine On and then rerunning with Sunday Trippy Sparkle. It's crazy that Trippy is supposedly already getting a rerun as well. Wow. Good for her, I guess. We have a pull for Trippy? Probably not. Right now, I am heavily debating if I'm actually going to be pulling for the Herta. Because I have a Noxa now, and then Noxa and Herta are super fucking good together. But I think I'm still going to be saving more for Rappa. And just get Rappa. I want the Fate characters. And I just started watching it, but I already know I'm gonna love it. I mean, luckily, Archer you get for free. And I am probably gonna skip out on Saber. I don't care that much. I have to set my priorities to other characters. And I feel like Rappa is gonna get a rerun soon as well, so I have to be like very picky right now. Unless like maybe Rappa comes before Saber still, and then we and then we'll see. Maybe I can get Rappa and then pull on Saber. So I guess now is a good time as any. Yeah, there's some great characters on the banners right now. No, second half of the current update is gonna be Aglaia and Cypher. And I'm debating there too. Do I go for Aglaia's E1? Because I still have energy issues, even though like I have basically every single character that I need to try and not have energy issues, but Aglaia is just needy as hell. I'm just not a fan of the combat, but I just need to get used to it, and I probably need help from my lovely friends who already play. I still have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Knowing Hoyo, when can I expect a rerun for it? Yeah, she had a release 5 months ago in December. I mean, knowing Hoyo, it's very inconsistent. Considering, like, right now in Honkai, we're getting the Herta rerun and an Aglaia rerun already before Sunday got a rerun, and Sunday came out before them. Rappa hasn't had a rerun in like months. And then look at Genshin. Shenhe didn't get a rerun until the last Chronicle banner, which was like over a year. I think currently there's some other characters that haven't had a rerun in a while. Raiden is already getting another one. The Natlan characters are starting to get reruns. Like, I have no idea what Hoyo is doing. I could not tell you when Miyabi is going to get a rerun. Yeah, she is. But like, it's crazy she's already getting another freaking rerun. Fucking Raiden Kinij. Like, Kinij is good. I don't like his playstyle, but he's good. I wish I would enjoy his playstyle more, because I love playing Emily and he's super fucking fun with Emily. like Kenichi is super good with Emily because they both want burning. Yeah, Kokomi hasn't had a rerun in a while as well, and she's gonna be on a Chronicle, so not her own rerun. Like, I don't know, Miyabi could come out next update. Miyabi could be in like 4 updates. I don't fucking know. I was gonna pull for Kenichi because I thought Ifo was gonna be on his banner, but now I'm not. I'm saving for Dainslive. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know who I'm really gonna be going for next in Genshin. Cause like right now, there would only be like one Notland character that I currently don't have that I would try and grab on a rerun, and that would be Mualani. I don't care for Mavuika, I don't care for Kenichi. Okay, maybe Chaska. Like Chaska and Mualani are the only 2 I would consider. Other than that, when it comes to reruns, there hasn't really been any character that I want that I don't have already. Constellations, maybe Neuvillette. Neuvillette's weapon is definitely still a target for me. Yeah, there's more just weapons right now. Like Neuvillette's weapon, Mavuika's weapon for Gaming, Emily's weapon maybe. I don't care for Skirk. Especially also needing a Scoffier for Skirk is kind of bullshit, so I'm not gonna do that. So yeah, right now there aren't really a lot of characters I want in Genshin. There are just a few weapons I want. Dainslive, I feel like it's also coming out not too long now. There's already been like some files leaked about him very recently, so we shall see, I guess. But yeah, like in Genshin, there's just nobody really right now that I'm looking forward to pull for. So weapons it is, or saving it is. Technically, I don't need Mavuika's weapon for Gaming. My Gaming, I'm sure you've seen it, Sable. Like my Gaming is crazy already. My Gaming hits like 500k. I don't need to worry about Gaming doing more damage. He's fine. But like, other than that, Neuvillette would be a cool weapon to have. Especially after losing to Zhongli's weapon the last time he was around. It would be nice. Is when I want Yelan. I don't know. I think, didn't she just have a rerun before the Inazuma banner as well? I'm not sure actually. I think she had one right before that. Let me check. And so there's the last time in August. I don't know then. I forgot what the requirements were to be on the Chronicle banner. Chronicle banner Genshin requirements. Yeah, what is the criteria? I don't want to know what you need to pull for them. I want to know what are the criteria for the banner. Which character can be on Chronicle Wish? Limited characters must have been featured at least 3 or more times in their exclusive Event Wish banners and not have been featured recently in Character Event Wish and Character Event Wish 2 banners to be included. Either Yelan was still too fresh from her rerun or she didn't have 2 reruns yet. I guess at that point. I think they changed it a bit more recently with the Liyue Chronicle Wish. But I don't know. Yeah, I think they just recently changed it. But yeah, I would assume it's either because she was still too fresh off her rerun, or she didn't have enough reruns yet to be featured on the Chronicle. Which means though she should get a rerun sometime soon, maybe ish as well. Who knows? I don't know. Genshin is weird with its reruns, as we established. Considering considering Shenhe. Huh, so she wants to done. I don't know then. Why was Yelan not on Chronicled Wish? So everyone, I've been playing since 4.2 and this time I had to take a break. So I missed it. At this point, I strongly regretted my inability. My hopes were placed on the Chronicle now. Okay. She got her rerun recently, so don't expect her at least a year. Wow. Chronicle Wish doesn't include recently run characters. They never specified what exactly counts as recent, but if 4 patches does. Yeah. So my guess is just that her rerun was too recent at that point, even though it was like 3 or 4 updates before. That's too recent for to be put on a Chronicle Wish. I don't know. My guess. Can't say for certain. It sucks. Absolutely, it sucks. But yeah. Yeah, I might do put some polls on the Inazuma one. Maybe I go for a weapon. Maybe I'll go for like one of the swords. Like Ayaka's or Ayato's sword. Who knows? I could put Miss Splitter on like Kaching or something. Cause I ain't gonna put it on Ayaka because I don't have Ayaka. And I will not pull for Ayaka. We'll see what I do. We'll see. There's just not a lot of things. It's gonna be on it. Most other like 5-star, yeah, Inazuma characters basically. Maybe you get her for lost 50-50. Please no. But yeah, Sable, it's Ayaka Ayato, Yoimiya Chiori, Yai Ito, Kokomi Kazuha, and their respective weapons. And like, I already have Kazuha. Ayaka and Ganyu redundant with each other. They don't like. You could, in a way, I think, play them together if you play Ganyu more of a burst support style. But usually, like, they have. You could run separate teams for them, and they have their own strengths. Ganyu can be run in like a burn melt setup, while Ayaka is very much dependent on freeze. And like, that makes Ayaka really good right now through Escoffier. And definitely gave her a bit more of a limelight now. Ganyu can benefit as well, but she's pretty decent at freeze. But I think like burn melt is still a really good option for her. So we'll see. But, like, I already have Kazuha. I kind of want to get Kokomi. I don't care for Ito. I have C1 Yai. I could try and go for C2 Yai, I guess, because I've been wanting that. Don't care for Chiori. I already have Yoimiya. I wouldn't be too mad about Ayato, and I don't care for Ayaka. So there's that. And then weapon-wise, Ayato's and Ayaka's weapons are both, like, Haran and Miss Splitter are goated weapons. Chiori's weapon isn't the worst either. Thundering Poles and Kagura's are okay. Kagura's is also like, it can be a decent crit stat stick, but not every character can really utilize its passive, so you're definitely going to be losing out on some stats. Stone Thrasher is pretty good. Freedom Sworn is a very good support weapon as well. So yeah, I might do a few polls on there. On Ayaka, she would be perfect for the Escoffier team I've been testing. Yeah, like Ayaka is amazing with Escoffier actually, because Ayaka just benefits so much from freeze. It's ridiculous. So looking lately at Samara characters, plenty of 4 stars, but not many 5 stars, and Diaz on standard. I'll pull for Nahida eventually, but other than that, I don't know. You gotta consider though, Elias, if they do a Sumeru Chronicle, they will put the standard units on there as well, and their respective weapons. So that might be a chance to snag Diaz, Claymore, or Tighnari's bow. Because they did have like the other Scafie Aurora Ayaka Ifa. I don't know if I want to pull her for... When's the banner? In like 2 or 3 days, Sable. To be fair, Sable, you kinda wanna run Escoffier in a full-on just Hydro and Cryo team to get the most out of her buff. Because if you run full Cryo and Hydro only, she shreds 55% resistance to Cryo and Hydro, compared to like the 20 or 15% she does on 2 Cryo or Hydro characters. Both Auroron and Aoife seem to be wanting to run in a more Electro charge focus, so so Hydro and Electro. Just a fun team to use. Oh, I get it. But yeah, I think nowadays Ayaka's best team, for example, I think is Ayaka, Furina, Escoffier, Shenhe. That's like her best team. Her like technically strongest. Oh, I love testing weird shit out as well, Sable. I get that totally. What is Nilou good for? Nilou has 1 team and 1 team only, and that's a Nilou Bloom. I use the correct teams for main comic. Yeah, no, absolutely. Nilou can only be played in Nilou Bloom. So Dendro and Hydro only characters. But she does that so fucking well. And hey, Kokomi is also one of her. What's Nilou Bloom? So Nilou has a special passive that when you only run Hydro and Dendro characters on your team, you get what's called Bountiful Bloom Cores. Which, instead of just small bloom cores and you can make them react with Electro or Pyro for Hyper Bloom and Burgeon, they're just bigger normal bloom cores. And the damage scales off of the EM of the character that triggers the bloom and Nilou's max HP. So you can make them do lots of damage and it's good AoE. The downside is those bloom cores, when they explode, they also hit you and do damage to you. So what people are actually running with her is Kokomi, or if you don't have Kokomi, Barbara even is a really good option for the healing to like negate the self damage from the bloom cores. So it's like Furina, no. I think you could, but like actually having like a EM Kokomi or EM Barbara in a Nilou team works surprisingly well. And then Nahida is one of her best Dendro options as well. I guess you could run Baiju technically. But definitely like Nahida, Nilou, Kokomi, or Barbara. And then another Hydro or Dendro unit. to get Nahida. You can make Nilou also work with Traveler, with Dendro Traveler, but Nahida's application is just so good, and you just create so many bloom cores. It's crazy. Like, I've actually been thinking about if I want to pull Nilou, because I want to try those Nilou bloom teams. I want to try some Bountiful bloom teams. Like, they can do a lot of damage. Like, I've seen some teams where those bloom cores would explore for like 60k. You could technically also run Kave as your on-fielder maybe in those teams, because Kave negates self-bloom damage. So you could do like Nilou, Nahida, Barbara Kave or something, or Kokomi Kave. But yeah, like that's like Nilou has a niche. It's so 60k. How much does it hit you? Like 10k, I think. Like they do a lot of damage to you, surprisingly. Like, you can die fairly quickly if you don't have good healing. Yeah, like Nilou is a character that has a very niche team, but that niche team does surprisingly well. It's someone, oh god, where in my opinion they really nailed the restrictions in a way that makes the character still fun and usable. Because you get like that extra mechanic. It's not like, oh, just because you run these you have like, oh, they do like 10% or like 20% more damage. Nah, you have a full-on different mechanic to it. And it's actually really good. I really want to try it out, but I don't know if I'm going to be pulling for Nilou. These Dia carry videos. She destroys things with her burst. I like to do something like that, but I don't know if this means you need her C6 or something. I think C2 is mostly necessary. And then I guess you could either run for Kasha or Emblem. Some GTA like game. I haven't heard much about that. I know there's going to be a new Honkai game at some point. I think somebody mentioned to me. Ananta. I haven't heard of that one yet. I don't know. I'm looking at it right now. It looks okay, I guess. Oh God, they have sound on the website. There was another one though that was recently announced that I saw trailers for that looked interesting. I might give it a shot, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to do more gacha games. I'm okay with what I have. I don't really support most of the like business decisions of a gacha game, so I don't want to delve deeper into those. I'm okay. I'm okay with what I have and what I play, and I don't want to go into more. So I think enough yapping for today. We gotta do. I take a non-gacha Hoyolite game, but nobody is making any. Nah, not really. It's I don't know. Like I still gotta go back on Monster Hunter and just do a bunch of stuff there. I still love the game. I just haven't played it in a while, but I still want to go back into it. I think I just burnt myself out so hard going for the platinum that I just needed a break from the game, but I'm basically ready to go back into it. And there's a bunch of other games I am looking at that I want to play soon. Yeah, I platinumed Wilds already. It was less of a hassle than World. World was a fucking grind. I mean, so was Wilds, but it was not as bad of a grind as World was, that's for sure. I can say that much. I did fight the Mizutsune finally, like a few days ago. It's a beautiful fight, a beautiful monster. Enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking forward to Lagiacrus in the next title update coming in soon, I think. So yeah, Monster Hunter I'm still looking forward to. I'm still hyped to play. I did re-download Bloodborne, so I might do a Bloodborne playthrough eventually as well. Celeste, Sifu, like 2 games I want to try out. We could do on stream eventually. We still also finished Persona 5 Strikers. Split Fiction also soon with Ben. So there's still a bunch of games I want to play and I'm looking forward to, and we're probably going to be doing. But yeah. All right, we've been. Oh my god. Please do Celeste already. I want to see you playing it. Yeah, I really want to play that. I played it a little bit before. I got to like the second or third stage after like hundreds of deaths already. But yeah, I might use my old PS4 controller for that because I don't want to like absolutely destroy the sticks on my PS5 controller on that game. Luckily, I can connect the PS4 controller to my PS5 if it's a PS4 game, and Celeste is only on PS4. So I should be able to use my PS4 controller. Yeah. I mean, Sable, most of the time the streams became yapping for an hour or longer, and then, oh yeah, book. That's the thing, right, guys? There's a book we're supposed to read. You know? This one right here. Book. Alright. So today we're going to be doing chapter 6. The Strands Converge. And we have, let me check the page numbers. We have 40 pages today. I think that's good considering like I'm already a bit tired and I don't want to do too long today anyway. So we got 40 pages to go through today. From 305 to 345. All right. Part 1, we're starting out in Red London. There were plenty of things that set Delilah Bard apart. But perhaps the most important, at least here in this London, was this. She didn't need magic. Sure, it made things interesting. But she'd been raised in a world without spells, without shortcuts. And despite her eye, or perhaps because of it, she'd learned the importance of close study, of observation, exploration, boots on pavement. Lila had no doubt the palace was doing everything it could to find the hand. And yet, the fact was, Alucard may have helped, and may have played at pirate. But he'd never stopped being noble. Rai was the literal king as well as a target, and Kel could practice being a swashbuckling sailor all he liked, could shed his coat and call himself Kay. But he had been the best magician in the world for the first 22 years of his life, and he was still, and would always be, a prince. All three men had been born and raised in power. That was how they saw the world. That was how they saw their city, from the stronghold of the Sona Rast. But the city was so much more than that. It didn't have one face, one mood. It could call itself one name, but in truth, it was made up of 100 smaller worlds, private and communal, domestic and wild. A handful were dazzling bright spots and a few were lightless corners, but the vast majority fell somewhere between. There was the night market, for instance, the shimmering magic-filled tents that bloomed in the shadow of the palace and thrived on the Isle's light. And there was the narrow way, an alley south of the Shah that catered to darker tastes. But there were dozens of other markets on dozens of other streets, less flashy perhaps, but just as full. Every city street had its own rhythm, its own color, its own pulse. And the best way to learn them, the only way really, was by walking. So that's what Lila did. She walked. Not the way Kel did, but with the purposeful strides of a man always on a mission. No, she walked like a body with nowhere else to be. She strolled, her head tipped back, and her hands in her pockets, fingers grazing the tokens. The same ones Kel still insisted on wearing around his neck. A shilling for Grey London, a lin for red, and a toll for white. She felt the toll's shape, an 8-edged coin, struck in silver. She thought of her first visit in the city after Holland's death, how relieved she'd been to hear they'd crowned a child queen. That was, until she saw a painting of that child's face. Lila had looked into those two-toned eyes, one hazel and the other black, and muttered, "Fuck." She had returned to Red London, and waiting Kel had told him about the healing city and the child queen, and at some point had decided to leave out the fact that she was Antari. Kel had enough problems, so Lila had resolved to handle it herself. She'd gone back again and again, every time she thought about killing the young queen, and every time she decided to wait another month, another year. It wasn't mercy that stayed her hand. Not really. Only the knowledge that White London was a power-hungry place, and whoever came next might well be worse. So Lila had waited and watched as over the years the city took on color like a pale body in the sun. Watched as it raised monuments to Holland Vosik. Watched as the Antari grew from a child into a lanky teen. Watched and waited for those two-color eyes to turn and look to other worlds. So far, at least, they hadn't. And one day, if they did, well, she would handle it. Lila turned her attention back to the city around her, the street unspooling beneath her boots. And she remembered the first day she'd come to Red London, hitching a ride on the back of Kel's magic. They'd been dragged apart by the force of the spell, and the first thing she'd come across was a parade. A vast spectacle of magic, strange and wondrous. The sight of it had made her hungry, and she felt that hunger now. Not in the pit of her own stomach, but the city itself, and the gaps left between wealth and want, and how they'd spread. As she moved away from the shelter of the palace, she felt the city change. It was a subtle thing, like the slow rise of a tide, or the air in the hours before a storm. But they're all the same. It only took her an hour to find the first sigil. She stopped before the wall and ran her fingers over the stone. The paint was long dry, beginning to flake, but she could tell that it had been a hand. "Where are you?" she muttered, laying her own palm flat in the center of the mark. It was then she noticed that the hand was tripped off center, turned faintly on the axis of an invisible wrist, as if mid-wave. She tipped her head the same direction, to the left, looked down the road, into the shawl. And Lila frowned. It felt too obvious. The roughest corner of the city was surely the first royal soldiers would have searched. But the night was dragging on, and she had no other leads. So she took a deep breath and plunged into the warren of streets as if the darkness were a curtain. One that parted to her, that let her through, and swung shut again in her wake. She found the second handprint one street down, and then a third. But the tilt of the hand always went to the left, which was as good leading nowhere. Or, she realized, in a circle. Lila closed her eyes and called up a map inside her head and laid the marks like pins until the picture formed. The hands made a loose ring around the block, a circle of 3 shuttered storefronts, a stable, a brothel called the Merry Way, and Lila froze. She turned her thoughts a different way, calling Verose back to her along with the tavern and Tanis. If you find yourself in London, she had said, I hear the gardens are lovely. Lila swore under her breath. The city had plenty of greenery, but Tanis hadn't been talking about flowers. Red Londoners had a special term for brothels. They called them pleasure gardens. She doubled back down the road until she found the canopied entrance of the Merry Way and went in. In retrospect, calling the Merry Way a pleasure garden was generous. It was more a rowdy tavern offering a collection of dark corners and rooms overhead. And you didn't have to listen hard to hear the sound of bedposts scraping on the floor. Lila leaned against the wall beside a belching fire, nursing a pint and watching as hosts drifted through with painted red lips, and that their hands grazed the shoulders of any patrons whose affections they'd accept. More than once, Lila sensed the host coming toward her and sent them on their way with a pointed look, flattered though she was. She took a sip of her ale and winced. It was black and bitter, thick enough to leave a trail on the inside of the glass, and like all brothel drinks, it was brutally strong. That's what she was counting for. It was common knowledge that liquor made tongues loose. It also made them loud. Whispers quickly became shouts, and secrets had a way of spilling out as patrons leaned further into their cups. And yet so far, she had learned nothing. Oh, she'd heard the usual mutterings of discontent, but not a single mention of the hand. No one even had the decency to look as though they were conspiring. One man did spit the king's name, but it had all the force of a mumbled oath. Other than that, it was raucous laughter and slurred stories, and a sailor passed out by the fire. Either the patrons were good at holding their tongues, or she suspected they weren't involved. This wasn't the right garden. And now her own head was beginning to fuzz in that warning way, and she knew that when she stood, she'd feel the swell and sway of the floorboards underfoot. But she had sea legs and knew how far she could go before they failed her. So Lila stayed long enough to finish her drink. When it was gone, she went to leave the glass on the bar, and for the first time noticed it was cracked. She traced the line, her thoughts skating like a pebble off the shore. What was it Maurice had said about the Persalis? That it had been damaged in the fight. Maybe it still worked, and maybe it didn't. Say it was broken, needed to be fixed. An object that dangerous. Maybe they tried to repair it themselves. But if they hadn't, if they couldn't. So Lila flagged the brothel's barkeep, a stocky woman with a hard jaw. But when she went to fill the glass, Lila put her hand over the rim. Let me ask you something, she said, softening her words to sound a little drunker than she was. She made sure to pair the words with a lin on the counter. Let's say you got lucky. You had a fine piece of magic fall into your lap. The barkeep raised a brow, waiting for the question. I got a little bunged up on the way there. Where would you take it? Me? Said the barkeep, putting her hand over the coin. I'd save the costs and trouble and fix it myself. She slid the coin into her pocket. But if I weren't so clever, I'd go to Haskin. Lila's gaze flicked up. She turned the name over on her tongue. Haskin? The barkeep nodded. Oh, he can fix anything, or so I've heard. Lila smiled and sat back. Good to know. A shout went up across the room and the barkeep drifted away. Lila looked down into the dregs of ale as if it were a scrying glass. Haskin, she thought. In the morning, she would start there. She nudged the glass away and shoved a hand in her coat, only to find she'd given the barkeep her last lin. She switched pockets and found a handful of coins Maurice had given her, the ones lifted from the hand who died on the ship. Lila weighed the 3 lins, letting them spill from one palm into the other. She had come all this way because of them, she reasoned. The least they could do was pay for her drink. She put 2 back in her pocket, set the 3rd on the table, and rose. A little too fast, it turned out, thanks to the last pint. She paused, steadying herself a moment, and frowned. Perhaps it was the angle of the light and the edge of the coin, the way it hit the ridges on the crimson metal, or perhaps it was something else, something harder to define, some gut sense that made her take the lin back up. Lila ran her thumb along the edge and saw that she was right. It wasn't entirely even. Son of a bitch, she muttered as she turned it, trying to make out the pattern. It was too small, the metal of the coin too dark. Lila sank back down into her chair. She drew the other 2 coins from her pocket and studied their edges, but they were even all the way around. This one alone was different, embossed with a code or a message. Lila only needed a way to read it. Of course, she had no paper on her, no ink. She wrapped her fingers on the table, mind racing. Her gaze dropped to the wood beneath her hand, pogged and scarred, and Lila smiled. She drew a handkerchief from her coat with one hand and placed the other flat on the wood. The surface was a tapestry of stains, and she doubted anyone would notice one more flaw. Still, she kept her eye on the barkeep as she called on the fire. Heat bloomed beneath her palm, a tendril of smoke curling up between her fingers, and when she took her hand away, the wood beneath had singed black. She tipped the last drops of ale onto the scorched wood and mixed it with the tip of her finger. She kept the gesture slow, almost bored, a tipsy patron simply humoring herself, even though her heart was beginning to quicken the way it did right before when she drew her knife, fast with the promise of action. When her fingertip came away black, she rolled the coin through the makeshift ink and then, carefully, across the handkerchief. Son of a bitch, she said again as the words revealed themselves in tiny strokes. Son helarin ras nonis ora. It wasn't just a message. It was an address and a time. 6 Hilarion Way, 11th hour. Lila was already on her feet out the door before she realized she'd forgotten to pay for her drink. That's the end of part 1. There you go. All right, part 2. The dead owl perched, his pebble eyes watching, as Tez tore the spell apart. Days and nights of hard work ruined, and she'd be lying if she said it didn't hurt. But she knew she'd put her powers to the worst kind of use, gone and done something impossible, something forbidden. The worlds had been cleaved apart for a reason, and then she'd gone and made a bridge, crossed a boundary that had been put up centuries ago, one that was meant to keep her whole world safe. Tess thought of the ruined magic around the old woman's head, the dead threads hanging on the air. Thought of the man who'd brought this cursed thing into her shop, the way his own magic seemed to rot, and her hands moved faster, ripping at the knots she'd so carefully made, dismantling the magic she'd worked so hard to mend. The shop door rattled. Tess ignored it. Haskins had been closed since she took the job of fixing the door maker, and in that time a dozen customers had tried the handle, found it locked, and gone away. She expected this one to do the same. Only they didn't. They rattled the handle a second time, and Tess stopped working. She looked up. The rattling stopped. She held her breath and waited, but it didn't start again. Instead, the lock on the door began to groan, like metal bending out of shape, and Tez had just enough sense and just enough time to sweep the remains of the cursed doormaker into a sack and shove it beneath the counter before the shop door swung open and a man and a woman strolled in as if they'd been invited. "We're closed," said Tez, but the words had no effect. The two continued forward. They were a mismatched pair. She was short and sinewy, her black hair braided up into her crest. Her skin was the color of wet sand, her eyes a cold, flat gray. A metal cuff ran to the length of her forearm, and her magic twisted around her, the glowing orange of molten steel. That explained the lock. He was pale. Pale hair, pale skin, and built like a butcher's block. He had a face like one too, the surface deeply scarred. It looked like someone had tried to hack off his nose at some point, but the blade had gotten stuck on the bridge. His magic was a dark green, by far the brightest thing about him. An earth mover, Tess thought, right before he flicked his fingers and the door slammed shut behind them. Working in a shop like this, she'd learned to read her customers. It wasn't just written in their threads, but in their eyes, their gait. And Tess knew bad people when she saw them. These were bad people. "We're looking for Haskin," said the woman, ambling toward her counter. "He isn't here." "But you are," said the man, running his hand over the table. "I'm just his apprentice," she said. He stopped, pausing right beside the place she'd made the door, the scar hanging in the air barely a foot from this place, or from his face, though he didn't seem to notice. She forced her gaze back to the woman, who was now standing right across the counter. Tess watched as she produced a black ticket, the gold H stamped on the front. She flipped it around so the number was not showing. It was, of course, the same ticket Tess had given to the sick man, the one who'd brought her the doormaker. Tess reached for the ticket, but as soon as the slip of paper grazed her fingers, the woman caught her wrist and slammed it down against the counter. She yelped, tried to pull free, but the woman flexed, and a sliver of metal unraveled from the cuff on her forearm and drove into the wood around each of Tess's fingers, her hand, her wrist, and pinning her down. It happened so fast. Tess didn't feel the pain until it welled. Thin lines of blood where the bands of steel cut into her skin. Panic rolled through her, her free hand already reaching out, intending to undo the threads inside the steel. "I wouldn't," said the woman, who clearly assumed that Tess intended to pry herself free the usual way. There's a lot of metal in this shop. Tessa's free hand stopped, hovered, and withdrew. It was true. She could get herself loose and expose her power in the process, but in a test of speed, she would still lose. What do you want? She asked. We'll get to that, said the woman, leaning an elbow on the counter. But first... Suddenly, she had a knife in one hand and a lock of Tessa's hair in the other. With a flick of her wrist, the curls came free, dropping like a dark ribbon in the woman's palm. As Tess watched, the knife vanished, and the woman tied the lock of hair into a knot and slid it in her pocket. Panic wormed through her, not for the loss of the curls. She had a mountain of them, but at how they could be used. Just as names had value, so did anything that came from a person's body. That was meant to belong only to them. The woman wrapped her fingers on the counter, drawing Tessa's attention back to the metal pinning her hand. Now, said the woman, before I begin, you should know. For every lie you tell, you will lose a finger. She looked around. I imagine those are important in this line of work. Tess fought to steady her heart. She had never been a good liar, which was why she'd always opted for omission. Better to say nothing and avoid the traps, the tells. But she had a feeling silence wouldn't buy her much. Where is Haskin? Asked the woman. There's no Haskin, she said. It's just me. Could have told you that, said the man, hefting a sword from a shelf. He held it up to check his teeth. The woman let out a low sigh, halfway to a hiss, but kept her attention on Tess. What's a girl your age doing with a shop all her own? Tess swallowed. I'm good at what I do. So am I, said the woman, and Tess sucked in a breath as the metal pinning her hand tightened a fraction, cutting into her skin. Our friend brought in something to be fixed. Where is it? You'll have to be more specific, said Tess. After all, this is a repair shop. The man chuckled, the sound like a blade on a whetstone. The woman didn't smile. She nudged the ticket forward, and Tess made a show of staring at the number. I remember him, she said after a moment. He was sick. What? Not anymore, said the man in a way that made it clear he hadn't gotten better. The woman clenched her teeth. She didn't like this man, thought Tess. She didn't like this man, thought Tess. That was good. That was something. The woman's closed eyes shriveled and swiveled back to her. What's your name? A name was often a valuable thing, but only if you were alive to use it. Tess. Well, Tess, our friend made a mistake. He should have brought that piece to us, not you. We're here to take it off your hands. As she said that last word, she tapped the metal pinning Tessa's fingers. She tapped the metal pinning Tessa's fingers to the table. Did he tell you what it is? No, said Tess, glad it was the truth. He practically shoved it at me, never even said what it was meant to do. Do you know how hard it is to fix a spelled object without knowing its purpose? The woman's eyes narrowed. Did you fix it? No, she said, the word coming out too fast. The metal tightened suddenly, white-hot pain as the steel sliced into the base of her thumb. I mean, not yet, she gasped out. I'm still working on it. But it can be fixed. Tess nodded, frantic. and after a moment, the metal loosened, blood dotted on the counter between the fingers. "Where is it now?" asked the woman, gaze drifting over the shelves, and Tess gritted her teeth to hide her surprise. Something in the bland way she scanned the shop made Tess suspect she'd never seen the doormaker before, at least not when it was made whole, if they didn't know what they were looking for. Tess twisted, gesturing with her free hand to the wall of the shelves behind her. The stash, as Nero called it. "Third shelf," she lied, the words coming out too fast as she racked her brain for the contents of each basket. Something that was roughly the right shape. "Second bin from the left." That was a dangerous gamble, and as the woman rounded the counter and pulled out the bin, Tess watched for signs of suspicion or anger, braced for the feeling of steel slicing through her skin. But all the woman did was lift the contents from the bin. A box, roughly the same size and shape as the one bundled beneath the counter between her feet. Only this box would never open doors to other worlds. It was a simpler thing, meant to capture and play sounds, like the one she kept beside her bed to help her sleep. She had salvaged it from a market a week before, once to see if she could modify the spell to hold a voice. Thought it might be nice if Baresk could talk as well as listen. "Doesn't look very broken," said the woman. "It's just a container," said Tess. "That part was easy to fix." The same had been true for the doormaker. "It's the spell work inside that's hard." "Well then," said the woman, placing the box on the counter, "I suggest you get to work." Tess took a deep breath. "I need both hands." The woman tipped her head as if considering. Then the metal released, withdrew, returning to the cuff on her hand. Tess rubbed her hand, flexed her fingers, tried to hide how badly they were shaking. Her thoughts spun as she looked down at the box on the table in front of her. "This'll take time," she said. "Please go, please go, please go," thudded her heart, loud as the drums she'd heard in that other London. The woman turned, as if to leave, and grabbed a chair and dragged it across the shop floor to the counter. She spun it around and sat, arms across, backed along the back. "We'll wait." That was part 2. Alright guys, give me a second, I gotta be right back really quick. One second. Alright, I'll be back. All right, I'm back. All right. There we go. Man, so far, it's already pretty good. Like, oh my god. There you go. Getting some nice little like insight now of what's going on in Red London. Lila's investigation into the Hand. Those two Hand members trying to get the door maker of Tess. Oh boy. Oh boy. Alright. Things are heating up. Yeah, we're like halfway through the book now, so like this is what we still have to read. So we'll see. Indeed. All right. Part 3. Lila Bard should have listened to her gut. After all, it had gotten her this far. 6 Helaran Way wasn't in the Shaw. Far from it. Helaran Way lay on the city's northern bank, nearer the Ostra and Vestra than the dregs of London. It was an affluent borough with elegant, well-appointed shops, all of which sat dark at this hour, though the streets were still well lit, lanterns burning with warm, enchanted light. There was no date etched on the coin, no way to know if the time printed on the edge had come and gone, or lay ahead. But the Ferrasistras had been attacked less than a week before, and one of the thieves had been carrying this coin. She had to hope it wasn't a keepsake, but an invitation, one that hadn't yet expired. Son Helarin Ras Nonis Ora. 11th hour. According to the clock at the corner and the watch in her pocket, it was 11:30 now. She quickened her steps, boots sounding first on stone and then on wood, as she crossed the bridge onto the northern bank. This part of London moved at its own pace. Time turned to honey by the moneyed elite. It played home to performance halls and smoking parlors, dinner clubs, and grand estates, places where the city's wealth and power were both on full display. She saw no painted hands, and yet the coin rolled in her fingers, letters pressed against her skin. As she neared Helaran Way, Lila forced her steps to slow and lengthen into a more casual stride. Turned up her collar and straightened her spine, carrying herself with the confidence she always felt but rarely showed. Taking on the airs of the people she'd passed as she made her way to the address. With any luck, it would be the pleasure garden Tanis spoke of, the Hand all gathered beneath within, her hunt begun and ended in a single night. But then she got there. She only found a darkened house. Not a Vestran estate with grounds and a gate, though hardly a hovel. 3 stories with dark iron ringing its doorway, and trimming the balconies above. The roof a series of gold-tipped peaks. And she kept walking, past the house to the corner where she paused beneath an awning and considered the facade, waited to see if anyone else came or went. Lanterns burned in other windows, but 6 Hilaran Way was dark. And not the shallow dark that fell when the house's tenants had simply gone to bed. It had the hollow dark, peculiar to abandoned places. Oh, okay. Lila chewed the inside of her cheek. Perhaps she was too late, but she didn't think so. No, she thought, whatever was meant to happen here, it wasn't happening tonight. She turned the road toward the river and the inn, and in the narrow bed that waited when she felt a body moving in her wake. Lila slowed, craning to hear footsteps, but they must have been timing their strides to hers, because she heard only her own boots, and the far-off canter of hoofs, and a murmur of voices drawn high and thin on the breeze. That was what made them stand out. The silence of them was too heavy, too solid, like stuffing in a pillow. Kel had told her once that if she tried, she could feel the magic present in another body, but she didn't tell him that she'd been able to feel that long before she knew it was magic. Lila rolled her wrist, and the blade whispered against her palm. She stepped into the road, as if to cross, and in a shop front window she saw it, the flicker of movement at her back. A hooded figure, blending almost perfectly into the dark. She turned, the blade already singing through the air. The shadow lunged out of the way just in time, but Lila twitched her fingers, and the dagger followed, dropping an inch at the last second so it would buried itself in the fabric of their cloak and a wooden door behind. The figure gasped in surprise, pinned like a moth to the wood. "Well, hello," she said, as if stumbling across a friend and not a hand. Perhaps this had not been a wasted night after all. Beneath the hood, the shadow wore a mask, featureless and black. Even their hands were hidden beneath black gloves, which reached not for Lila, but for magic, but the dagger. The metal scraping against the wood as they dragged it free an inch. "Not so fast," Lila flexed, and the metal drove back into the hilt. "I have some questions." That was as far as she got before a small object tumbled from the figure's hand, hit the street beneath them, and exploded. There was no force to the blast, and barely any sound, only a flash of blinding light followed by clouds of choking black smoke. Lila's arm flew up to shield her eye from the flash, but then the smoke was everywhere, swallowing the lanterns at the streets and every other source of light. She braced herself for an attack, a weapon or a body searching out of the dark, but nothing came. The smoke hung, unmoving, and she sliced her arm through the air. A gust of wind sliced with it, cutting through the wall of black, revealing the door and the place where the figure had been pinned against it. But they were gone. Her dagger lay on the ground, abandoned, and she swept it up and turned, surveying the street as it came back in pieces. She caught the edge of a black cloak as it vanished down another road. Lila ran. The shadow was fast, and as her boots thudded over stone, she cursed them for fleeing and making her chase when they could have just stayed put and fought and lost. By the time she reached the corner and turned into an alley, they were nearly to the other end. She missed her flintlock then, her lovely gun, which had run out of bullets years before and had been relegated to the bottom of her trunk. Aim and fire, and down they would go. Instead, She was about to make a mess. Lila took a deep breath. Tiger, tiger, she thought. And even though she didn't need the words, she felt the magic rise to meet them, folded into hard steel by the sounds they made, if only in her head. And Lila turned her hand, palm up, and the street beyond the figure buckled and rose. The night shook, and the world beneath her trembled with the force of earth and stone scraping together as they were hauled up to block the road. A dead end. The figure spun, looking for another way out, and perhaps they would have found one. She was tired of running. She clenched her hand, and the street grew up over their boots, binding them in place. Now, she said, ambling down the road as if she had all the time in the world. Let's try this again. In one hand, she held her knife. In the other, fire bloomed. But as she neared the figure, they fell forward, collapsing to their hands and knees. And for a moment, she assumed they were injured. The truth was much worse. They were bowing. She reached the kneeling figure and used the tip of her knife to push back their hood. When it fell back, so did the mask, revealing a young face, dark skin and white brown eyes and cheeks that looked like they couldn't even grow hair. Her gaze dropped to his front. His cloak had fallen open, and in the firelight she saw the armor and the symbol pressed into the surface. Black on black, so the sigils barely showed, but she knew it. Of course she knew it. It was a chalice and sun. Lila's breath hissed through her gritted teeth. No wonder he hadn't fought back. He wasn't a hand. He was a member of the Rezin Kal, the crows that spied for the crown, for the queen. Apologies, Mazaven, he said, folding English and Arnesian together, as so many of the guards did among the royal palace royals. Lila let go of the magic, and the earth crumbled from his boots. Get up, she ordered, and he rose, eyes flickering up to her chin. What were you doing at that house? The confusion on his face said enough. There were people who know how to school their expressions, hide whatever they were thinking behind a placid mask of calm. This boy wasn't one of them. She was willing to bet he'd never won a game of Sanct. He hadn't been waiting at Helaran Way. That was just when she'd finally noticed him. She put out the flame and brought her hand to her face, rubbing her eyes. How long were you following me? From the palace, he answered, an obedient servant now. You crossed the Southern Walk and encircled Shaw before going into the Merry Way, then... Enough! Lila prickled in annoyance. She hadn't heard him coming. It was the queen's damned work. The cloak absorbing light, the armor spelled for stealth, even the boots warded so they made no sound on the paving stones. Still, she thought she would have sensed him sooner. She wouldn't make the same mistake again. Lila rested the tip of her blade against the chalice on his chest. Take a message to the queen. Next time she sends a crow to follow me, I'll cut off its wings. The boy, and he really was a boy, looked about to speak, and then thought better of it. He nodded once. He didn't move. And Lila stepped aside with a flourish, but he still hesitated, as if waiting for her to leave first. Not a chance. Fly away, she ordered, and as she said it, a gust of wind rolled through and pushed him in the right direction. She watched him leave, watched until her eye couldn't split him from the other shadows, until he melted away into the dark. On the way back, she took her time. It was almost midnight and the city had quieted, taken the weariness of a body needing sleep. She retraced her steps across the copper bridge, which despite its name was mostly wood and stone, the green-tinged metal reserved for rail and arch and filigreed post. Lila stopped halfway across. Despite the hour, she wasn't the only one on the bridge. A carriage rattled past, and a few nobles were making their way back to the northern bank on foot. One stopped to admire the palace, the way it vaulted over the aisle and doubled over. Golden edges reflected against the watery sky, but Lila put her back to the spires and looked out at London. It stood there, halfway between the banks, the city cleaved in two by the Crimson River. It'd been looking in the wrong place. She had no doubt that Alucard and his guards were searching for the hand, but she was willing to bet they'd focus on their efforts on the city's darkest corners. She thought of the handprints circling the shawl, how obvious they seemed, a bull's eye in red paint, the X on a treasure map. Her hands slipped into her pocket, fingers tightening around the coin, its uneven edge digging into her palm as her gaze skated back to the northern banks, home to the city's elite. "They cannot hide," said Alucard. But if the real danger wasn't hiding at all, what if it was standing in plain sight? Back at the setting sun, the tavern was dark, the shutters drawn. Lila climbed the stairs, limbs growing heavier with every step, but when she reached her room, it was empty. Crimson spilled in through the window, caught on the edge of the trunk, cast pale red fingers across the unseen bed. Unused bed. Kel hadn't come back. No matter, Lila told herself as she slumped onto the cot. More room for her. She tucked her hands beneath her hand, let the quiet settle like a sheet, waited for sleep. It didn't come. At last, Lila heaved herself up, an oath on her lips, the knife already in her hand, the brief prick of pain, the well of blood against her fingers. She drew the mark and whispered the words to the wall, felt the wood drop away as she stepped through. The narrow room vanished, replaced by the grand palace chamber, as if the world had drawn in every deep breath and pushed outward, the low ceiling thrust into a vaulted one, decked in gossamer clouds. The weathered wood turned to marble, the only common tie, the crimson light, spilling now through the edged glass doors, glancing off the gold threads in the rug, and a body sprawled atop the royal bed. Kel lay half-dressed and face down, his coat and shoes cast off in a breadcrumb trail from the door to the foot of the mattress. His back rose and fell, his copper hair panned out like a dying fire over his cheek and onto the pillow. Too many years of safety had made him a heavy sleeper. He didn't stir when she kicked off her boots, or when she shed her coat and the more cumbersome blades, or when she climbed onto the bed, or when she reached out and ran her fingers with all the lightness of a thief over the pale streak that glinted in his hair. When she curled in, close enough to hear the soft tide of his breath, and let it pull her down to sleep. That's the end of part 3. Part 4, we're now jumping into White London. It was dark by the time Kosika mounted the castle steps, her clothes stiff from blood. With every stop on the procession, she had shed more and more of her guard. Now, returning from the Silver Wood, only 4 soldiers flanked her, Lark among them. and only one Ver, Serac, and Nazi, of course. The drums had ceased, but she could still feel them echoing in her skull. Korsica told herself it was not a headache, it was the pulse of the city growing stronger. Still, it had been a long day. Her arm ached where she had cut it for the ritual, and her legs were sore from crossing the city on foot, and she wanted nothing more than to rinse the blood from her skin and sleep. But the castle door swung open onto celebration, the great hall brimming with life. Lanterns hung like orbs of silver light, a dozen pale suns casting their shadows from the stone, and the scent of a banquet wafted through the air like steam. It was the Ver who insisted on throwing these extravagant feasts, as if the tithes and gifts were only a preface, as if they weren't the entire point of the day. The city's neighbors, the city's highborns gathered, their hands neatly bandaged in silk instead of gauze, the only signs that there had been a tithe at all. The royal guard had cast off their helms and now moved about the room, mingling with the guests, and the Ver stood around, resplendent in their silver mantles. The sight of it all rankled Korsica. This was meant to be a day of prayer, of sacrifice, devotion. And instead, "Our queen," said Ver Talik, lifting his glass, and across the hall, the drinks all rose, their contents crimson. Nasi came up behind her, reaching to peel the bloodied cloak from Korsica's shoulder. "Leave it," she snapped, striding out of her friend's reach. She walked into the gathered crowd, the sea of people parting like water, burbling their praise. But Korsica didn't linger to be feted. She continued past them to the stairs. She wasn't in the mood to entertain, to be paraded through the halls. Veraska, a keen-eyed woman with graying hair, tried to cut her off. "Your Majesty, the feast." "I'm tired," said Korsica. That should have been reason enough to make her step aside, but the Ver gestured to the crowd of nobles. "But you must." Korsica's gaze swung toward the Ver like a blade as she realized her mistake. She took a step back and dropped to one knee, her silver half cloak skimming the floor. And Korsica reached out and brought her hand to the Ver's shoulder, just as she had earlier that day. She could feel the woman tense beneath the touch. They both knew that of all the blood that stained Korsica's skin, some of it was her own. Knew that it would only take a word and the Ver would come apart, just as her attacker had. His bones were still heaped on the streets, the rest of him churned into the river. The sounds of the party faltered around them, and Korsica lowered her voice. The words meant only for the silvered servant. "Tell me, Veraska," she said. "What must I do?" "Nothing, my queen," answered the Ver, her voice tied as bowstrings. "You have done more than enough. If you are tired, you must rest. The Ver will host this evening in your stead, and in your honor." Korsica lifted her hand from the Ver's shoulder. "You do that," she said, turning again toward the stairs. The time, everyone had the sense to let her go. Now we're jumping back 4 years ago. The door of the throne room were heavy things. It took 4 guards to guide them open and closed, or one annoyed Antari. It was Nazi who had come to find her that afternoon, to warn her of the Ver. What of them? Corsica had asked, distracted until she saw the look in Naziz's face. Just as the other girl had never held her tongue, she could not hide her emotions either. When she smiled, her whole face seemed to be splintered with joy. But when she was mad, her scarred face took on the stiffness of a mask. They're meeting, she said. Without you. The throne room doors groaned open on their hinges as they swung wide, announcing Corsica's arrival. She had seen drawings of a whale, a sea creature large enough to stand within. The throne room reminded her of that. The bone-white pillars, the vaulted ceiling arched like ribs far overhead. And the Queen's Ver had the decency to look surprised, their voices dropping away mid-sentence as she strode into the vast hall, her small shoes sounding on the floor. That floor, there was rumored that once upon a time it had been laced with bits of bone, the enemies of Astrid Dane, bleached white and studded into the marble. It was only a rumor, and even if it weren't, those stones had long since been replaced. Right now, she wished they hadn't been. She would have liked to add some more. Corsica's throne sat in the center of the room, the council's chairs curved in a loose circle, hands cupped around the queen. That throne alone sat empty. Your Majesty, said Ver Pachoric, rising to his feet. Don't get up, she said, but they did anyway. She knew it was a sign of deference, but all it did was make Corsica feel even shorter than she was. It's my fault for being late. She took her seat, tucked her legs between her to hide the fact they didn't reach the floor. Of course, I wouldn't have been late if someone had told me we were meeting. The Ver exchanged looks, their faces lined with everything from annoyance to discomfort. 13 of them, and honestly, aside from Serac, most of the others still bled together in her mind. It wasn't just the silver half cloaks they all wore, it was the way they held themselves, the way they sat in their chairs, the way they spoke to her, as if she were a child and not a queen. Now 12 of them looked to each other. Only Serac had the decency to look at her, and seemed about to speak when Ver Pachoric cut in. Pachoric, she would always know. After all, he was the one who'd found her. We didn't want to bother you, he said, bowing his pale head. Matters of state can be quite boring, added Vereska, who was easy to remember because she had eyes the same shade as the silt, so light they were nearly colorless. I assure you, said Corsica, nothing about my city bores me. Now, she added, sitting back in her throne, what have I missed? Another Ver cleared his throat. We were discussing what to do about the other worlds. Corsica frowned. She knew of them, of course. The other rooms in the house, as Serac would say. What of them? She asked. Well, there's always been communication in the past, and... Has a messenger come to us? No, said another Ver. Not yet, but we think we should go to them. We? Echoed Corsica. But it wasn't a we. The doors between worlds were closed, and only an Antari could open them again. Only an Antari could step through. I do not see the point, she said. A murmur went through the Ver, like wind through leaves. You wanted to go to this other London? And do what? Deliver mail? Holland did it. That from Ver Pachoric. As a servant, said Corsica, through gritted teeth, not a king. Only then, because the Danes coveted the other world. I think it's time to focus on our own. Serac met her gaze, and she saw the faintest smiles of the corner of his mouth. He approved. It's not worth the risk. This from Veraska. If Korsica was taken, we would have no Antari and no queen. Korsica did not fail to notice the other Reska, the order Reska had given to those titles. One day, said a dark-haired Ver named Lastos, the walls will fall. We should be ready. All the more reason to focus on our strength. Okay. All the more reason to focus on our strength instead of theirs, countered Korsica. Verlastos sat forward, fingers gripping his chair. We should know our enemies before we meet them on the field. Why must they be our enemies? Asked Cerverac. Why must they be anything at all? We are closer to the original seat of power, said Korsica, and every day our world revives a little more. What if there's those two? Pressed Verlastos. We have no other way of knowing. But Korsica's attention was no longer on his words. He was the type of man who gestured as he spoke, and she saw that both his hands were bare. Knowledge is always better, he was saying. She cut him off. You didn't tithe, Verlastos. He gave a cursory glance down at his hand. I was busy with affairs of state. The Ver drew breath, about to dive back into his argument, but Korsica did not let him. For this, you will make time. He waved the words away as if they were a fly. Very well, he said. If it humors the Queen, now back to the matter of the other London. Do it now. Korsica had drawn the blade from her hip and was holding it out to Verlastos. He looked at the weapon's edge. Repose. Your Honor, Your Highness. The ground does not stand on ceremony. It will welcome your tithe a day late. She waited, but the Ver did not take the offered blade. Let it wait then, he said, until the next tithing day. They are becoming rather frequent. Lastos warned Pachoric, but the Ver pressed on. No. First, it was once, then one time a year, now two. At this rate, soon we will all be too weak to do anything but bleed. You say weak, chided Korsica, but our London grows stronger every day. Do you know why? He snapped. Because we have banned binding spells and scrubbed the worst offenders from our streets. Because we have guilds that bring their goods up and down the silt now it has stalled, and collect taxes relative to wealth. He shook his head. You can choose to tithe in blood and worship men as saints, my queen, but rituals do not sustain the city. You too served Holland, said Berserk scornfully. You too believed. I believed he was the best we had at hand, sir, said Verlastos. Not some mythic king. You've seen trees blooming in the courtyard, said Vertalik. The amount of grain arriving on those barges from up north. Why do you think the silt flows so swiftly now? Interjected Korsica. Lastos gazed at her with cold, flat eyes. All that freezes stars in time. Perhaps it is simply nature. And yet, she said, it has yet to thaw in you. The Ver's hands closed into fists, the gesture only half hidden beneath his cloak. He was the only one, of course, to still lack magic. Most children these days had elements blooming in them, but a fair number of adults were proving barren soil. Among the Ver, there were still three: Lastos, Reska, Pachorik, who could not conjure so much as a candle flame. Perhaps you are afraid, Corsica went on. Perhaps you want to believe that magic has a will, that it is choosing, because that would mean it isn't choosing you. I would not be so arrogant, little queen. Oh, man, those last words, name and title, spat as if they were a seed stuck between his teeth. Corsica looked down at the blade still in her hand, studying her reflection in the steel. This castle is made of stone, she said, and stone carries sound. I've heard what you call me when I'm not there. Corsica, little tyrant. Verlastos blenched, and she could not tell if it were fear or anger that made him pale. Do you deny it? She pressed. He shook his head. You are a child, with a child's knowledge of the world. The other verse stirred, uneasy. Pachorik reached for Lastos' arm, but he shook it off. A little girl content to play at being queen. Corsica didn't stand. It would feel too much like rising to the bait. But she couldn't stop the air from churning through the hall around her. The stones crunched like grinding teeth, and she sat forward on her throne. Then you should have not put me there, she said. No, he said slowly. We shouldn't have. Lastos looked around the room, waiting for the other Ver to stand with him, or at least against her. And Corsica thought of the call board in her room. Nazi had shown her all the ways to lay the pieces out. In more than one arrangement, the priests were strong, and her hands... Wait. Oh. The priests were strong enough to rule without king. But that was only a game. And Corsica was not only a queen, she was Antari, the heir to Holland's power, and the other Ver knew it, even if they did not wish it so. Pachorik shook his head. He sighed, and Reska kept her eyes on the floor. Talik looked at Lastos as if he doomed himself, and slowly Lastos realized that he had. I am called to rule, said Corsica, but you are not bound to serve. She gestured to the throne room doors, still wide open. He tore the silver mantle from his shoulders with so much force that the circle pin came free and fell, ringing like a bell as it bounced across the floor. He should have turned and left. Instead, he glared at Corsica and said, Pachorik should have put you down when he first found you in the street. After all, the best thing Holland Vosig ever did for us was to die. He cut off, his voice replaced by the sick crunch of blade on bone. And Lastos let out a ragged gasp, looked down to find a length of steel protruding from his chest. That is blasphemy, hissed Serac, who stood like a shadow behind him, his dark eyes black with rage. The other Ver were on their feet, hands on their swords, and for a moment the air in the hall felt solid as glass, about to break. But the moment passed, and none came forward. They only watched as Serac withdrew his sword, and Lastos crumpled to the pale stone floor, his mouth opened and closed. but all that escaped was a rattle and a gasp, and then nothing. And Kosaka watched his blood spread across the stones and thought, what a waste. As she looked up and saw Sirach's eyes on her, an understanding passed between them, and then Sirach spoke loud and clear. Kos Ochvar. The words were taken up and carried through the hall. Kos Ochvar. All hail the queen. And that's the end of pod 4. Guys, I really want to continue and, you know, do one chapter a week. But oh my god, you guys know this as well. I'm barely keeping up right now. I am barely keeping up. Oh my god. I think we might have to call it here today already. I hate to do this because I love the book and we're in the middle of a chapter. But like, I don't know. I don't know. There's like, how many pages are left? It goes to 3. Oh my god! It goes to 345. We're at 331. There's like 14 pages left. I don't know if I can do it. Like, I feel so bad leaving now because we barely have done anything with the book today. And again, I hate having to like break in the middle of a chapter. It's like 13 pages. I think I can do it. We'll try. All right, part 5. Red London in the now. How long is this going to take? It was after midnight. Tess's eyes burned and her head ached, and for the last hour she'd been harboring the fragile hope that if she took long enough, the killers might get bored enough to let down their guard and give her a chance to escape. But the man with the butcher's block face was still pacing the shop, palming half-fixed pieces of magic, and the woman with the crested braid hadn't moved from her chair, those flat gray eyes hanging on Tess. Until Varese twitched. The owl had been still as, well, a normal skeleton, as if he could sense the danger in the room. But the question had stirred the spellwork in him. He ruffled his bone wings, swiveled his head. The woman's eyes flicked sideways. The edge of her mouth quirked into something like a smile. Kersla? She asked, reaching toward the owl, and he responded by pecking her fingers. Her smile sharpened. What a clever bit of magic. She flicks her hand as she said it, and a metal wire running through the owl shivered. Don't, said Tess, a single pleading word. Maybe it was the way she said it, or simply the fact that her hands stopped moving, that made the woman let go of the little owl. Her gaze dropping back to the box sitting disemboweled on the counter. There was a tangle of magic, a snarl of strings, made messier by the chaos of the surrounding shop. But Tess didn't dare put on her blotters. She couldn't afford to narrow her gaze, couldn't afford to forget the other bodies in the room, even as she doom. As the doom headache bloomed. Oh my fucking god. Despite the audience, Tess didn't bother masking her powers or pretending to use tools. Didn't bother with anything but her eyes and her hands as she drew her fingers through the air, shaped the spellwork around the box into something she could use. And the man slumped against the door, looking bored. The woman leaned forward in the chair, her fingers rapping on the metal cuff, the only sound in the shop. "What's your name?" asked Tess, when she couldn't bear the quiet. The woman raised a dark brow. "I told you mine," she added weakly. The woman's mouth twitched again. "Bex," she said, the sound sliding through her teeth. "The walking lump of shit over there is Callan." Tess kept her hands moving. "You don't like him." "What gave it away?" "You're here as partners." The scarred man, Callan, snorted. "Wouldn't say that." Bex considered her words. "At the moment, we share an employer." "I thought assassins worked alone." Bex narrows her eyes. "You're a little too sharp," she mused. "If you're not careful, I'll get you cut." She stood and stretched, the bones in her neck crackling audibly. "Now do your job or I'll do mine." Tess surprised herself by bristling at the threat. "Why should I?" "You will kill me either way." "Sure," said Callan. "But if you make it quick, so will we." Her boldness cracked and fear got in. "Look at it this way," said Bex, resting her elbows on the counter. "I wasn't hired to kill you, and I don't make a habit of doing work for free." Tess wanted to believe her. Might have, if Bex were there alone. But Callan had the look of a man who'd killed plenty of people just because he could. "Don't worry about him," said Bex, as if reading her mind. "Worry about me. Worry about that," she added, pointing to the box on the counter. So that's what Tess did. What, in truth, she'd been doing for hours. Tess kept her eyes on her hands, forced herself not to glance at the echo of the door. It still hovered in the air to Callan's left, its edges burning. She wondered if they couldn't see it at all or simply weren't looking. At least they couldn't see what she was doing. If they'd been able to see the threads of magic, they would have noticed she had braided pale gold lines of air upon air upon air together inside the wooden frame. It was a blunt but effective piece of work, one she almost ruined when Callan, having abandoned his place by the door, knocked a giant metal box of scrap to the floor. And Tess's hands jumped, and she held her breath, afraid the spell would trigger then and there, but mercifully, it didn't. "Fucking saints," muttered Bex. "If only someone would hire me to kill you." "Don't act like you haven't tried for free," said Callan, kicking the metal box aside. "I'm as hard to kill as the king himself." "I heard he had a spell on him," said Tess, gingerly attaching the final thread of doing her best impression of someone with plenty of work still to do. "I guess we'll find out," said Bex. Another box went crashing to the floor, and the woman closed her eyes and clenched her teeth. "If you drop one more fucking thing," she snarled. But Callan wasn't listening. He was staring at the space in front of the shelves, head cocked to one side. "Qu'est-ce là?" Tess followed his gaze and went cold. He was staring straight at the remains of the door she'd made. He made a cautious circle, squinting at the spot, and thought he couldn't see it fully, not the way she could. He had clearly noticed something, a shimmer in the air, a wrongness. "Hey, Bex," he said, large hand drifting toward the echo of the spell. "Come look at this." Tessa's heart pounded as the other killer sighed, rising from her chair. She was out of time, and as soon as Bex turned away from the table, Tess made her move. She hefted the object she'd been working on, the one that was not and would never be a door maker, and lobbed it into the center of the room. As it fell, Tess grabbed the owl and ducked beneath the counter, curling into a ball around Varese and the bundle of disassembled parts left over from the real door maker. The wooden box, which, as she had told the killers, was really only a container of magic, hit the workshop floor and Haskins' shop. Hit the workshop floor of Haskins' shop and shattered. And as it did, it triggered the wind spell she'd coiled within, which exploded out with sudden, violent force. Tess had never made an elemental bomb before, had no idea if she'd given the magic enough kick, not until the air slammed out, splintering wood and shattering glass and shaking the entire building. Even the counter, bolted to the floor, groaned beneath the percussive force of the explosion, and in the ringing aftermath, she couldn't hear the assassins, didn't know where they were, if they'd been killed by the blast or merely rattled. But Tess knew better than to wait. She grabbed the bundled doormaker and the dead owl and hurled herself out from the counter toward the back of the room and the curtained doorway that led to her quarters. There she stopped and looked back, saw the woman Bex tangled in the limbs of a buckled metal shelf, the man Callan slumped against the far stone wall. But they were both still alive and already starting to recover. Tess slammed her hand against the doorframe and the spell she'd woven there. The first thing she'd ever built in Haskins' shop, and it wasn't for a customer. It was for herself, in case she had to run again. Tess loved the shop, but it was just wood and stone and a painted door, and she didn't hesitate. She laced her fingers through the threads and pulled as hard as she could. Cracks ran from her hand, shooting across the walls and over the ceiling and through the floor. And as they did, Tess turned and bolted through the curtain and the narrow quarters at the back of the shop, past the little table and the lofted bed and the life she'd made there, and out the back door, just as the entire building sagged and the roof caved in and the whole place came crashing down. Oh, wow. Okay. That's crazy. She just destroyed her entire shop. Also, Lila hasn't been there yet, and now the shop is destroyed. Now what the fuck is Lila gonna do? How's she gonna find her? Part 6. Over the years, a great number of people had tried to kill Callan Trell. His body was a map of failed attempts, times he'd been stabbed and burned, hacked at and cursed. He'd broken most of his bones, lost a good deal of blood, had been buried more times than he could count, which was to say, it would make more than a fallen house to keep him down. The girl had been quick, he'd give her that. The blast of the wind had slammed his head into the wall, rattling his skull, and in that ringing second, he'd almost missed the follow-up assault. Almost, but not quite. He'd had just enough time to throw his power out and up, blocking the most of the stone and wood and metal as it came crashing down. And now, Callan stood among the settling debris, a mountain of rubble to every side, Blood ran into one eye where something sharp had found the skin over his brow, but otherwise he was unscathed. Let Bex Galvans keep her steel with all of its flourishes, he thought. Earthwork was blunt but effective. Speaking of Bex, he hauled himself up out of the makeshift hole, stood atop the heap that used to be Haskin's shop before the little bitch had brought the whole thing down on top of them. He shifted his feet, and the rocks and timber groaned beneath him. He paid no mind to the spectators now pouring into the streets, some shocked, others merely curious. This was, after all, the Shawl, where unofficial motto was, "Mind your own business." He looked around. No sign of Bex. With any luck, she was dead beneath the wreckage. Not that Callan ever had much luck. He turned, scanning the buildings to either side, the alley and the road, and caught a twitch of movement, a girl-shaped shadow sprinting away into the dark. Khalil smiled, blood and dust in his teeth. He'd always been fond of the hunt, and leapt down from his perch atop the ruins and landed hard, boots hitting the stone road. More blood dripped into his vision, and he wiped it away. The cut in his brow was deep. It would scar. One more mark to add to the tally. Khalil drew a blade from his belt and started down the road. Tez wove between the buildings in the dark. She knew the Shawl better than the rest of London, knew it as well as anyone could when they weren't born and raised among these narrow streets, knew it was a different place at night. The roads were always narrow, a warren of alleys, few wide enough for a carriage or a cart, but in the dark, those winding streets blocked out the light as well. Here and there, the aisle's red glow tinted rooftops crimson, but no river or lantern could truly push the shadows back. Luckily for Tess and her strange eyes, the threads of power shone so bright that no place in the world was ever truly dark. But her feet were clumsy with panic, and unlike the rest of the city, the Shawl didn't sleep at night. It came alive as the sun went down, despite the heavy dark. Or perhaps because of it. Tess twisted her way through a midnight market, avoiding half a dozen low-lit stalls, only to collide with a group of bodies as they spilled out of a tavern. Apologies tumbling out as she vanished past. Varese still shoved into her pocket, and a broken doormaker bundled against her chest. We're so close, guys. I don't think I can, though. I'm way too tired. I'll definitely see that next week we're gonna finish this chapter and do an entire chapter after that to make up for this, but I am way too tired to really continue. I'm sorry, guys. Oh my god. All right. But yeah, I'm just gonna go to sleep. We'll continue this next week. But until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is. And I'll see you guys next time. Love you all. Bye bye.